Hey, good morning, y'all. It's Sunday morning where we've been pretty backed up here at the bike shop. And this is one of the bikes that I picked up yesterday from our friends at the Charlotte Recyclery. They were really nice to give us 6 or 7 bikes that we can fix up and get to people who need transportation. And they're fantastic bikes, they really are. But it needs a fair amount of work. And I just wanted to kind of show you what the process was that one of these bikes goes through, whether it's donated by somebody here in the community or in this case, like I said, came from the Charlotte Recyclery. Again, can't thank them enough for setting aside a handful of bikes for us. So this is kind of the ideal bike for us to give away to folks. It's a hybrid style bike, Giant Sedona. As you can see, well, the shifter's broken here, so it needs some shifters. No grips. The tires are flat. What I'm going to do is check and see if they're dry rotted, see if they'll hold air, but then strip off everything that's not working and put new parts on, and see if we can get this done fairly inexpensively, just to kind of get an idea of what what bikes go through to get built up for the community here. So we'll go ahead and get started on it. First thing I do with any of these bikes that come in, if I don't see like rim tape hanging out, rim tape is the little liner piece, here's a bunch of it, that goes around the rim. If this is hanging out, then I don't bother inflating the tire, but since I don't see it, we're going to inflate it just to see if the tubes hold air, because then I can continue doing everything else and periodically just grab the tire, and if it feels soft, then I know that tube needs to be replaced. The other thing I do right off is kind of squeeze the tire while it's flat and see if I see any bad cracking in the tire, which in this case I really don't see any bad cracking. So these tires and tubes may be okay, but again, we'll inflate them. That way they can kind of be holding air while I'm moving around. And before I inflate them, it's just always a good idea to shift the tire around like I just did on this one. Get the valve coming straight out of the rim so that it's not coming out at an angle. That can risk, if the tube is good, that can risk cutting the tube at the valve. And as I'm inflating any of these old tires, I do a little bit at a time so that if it blows off the rim, hopefully it does it at a lower PSI than at full PSI. Alright, so I bring them up to 40, and the valve shifted on me. I bring them up to 40 when I'm doing this initial check, and the reason is it's really easy to see if I have a leak, if they're not rock hard after a few minutes. All right, bring them on up. All right, so they appear to be holding 40 psi right this minute. And again, what we'll do is we'll just check and see how they are after we kind of get through everything. Fortunately, I drove through a horrible rainstorm on the way back. These bikes were really dusty and really nasty just from sitting. The rain took care of most of that, so I don't really have to wash them much. But I do go ahead and hit all these with bike wash. I mean, I know we're giving them away, but come on, we can at least make them look good. You know, make people proud of their bike, and hopefully keep them in good shape. And with all these bikes, I mean, whenever we give them out, we let folks know that if they have any problems, bring them back in. We'll take care of it for them, so they're not, you know, stuck with a liability. That's the last thing we want. We want them to, you know, be able to count on their bikes and not have a couple $100 charge if something bad happens, you know, let's keep it affordable for folks, you know. And for a lot of these folks, affordable is zero, and that's fine too. That's fortunately we've got really nice grants for stuff like that. Helps us out, helps them out. We just want to keep people moving. So just a quick wipe down, get some of the schmoo off of there. And since we know the shifters are blown, we're going to go ahead and brake pads are also blown. We're gonna address those fellas too. Cables, the brake cables feel great, nice and responsive. So quick check over while I'm running through it. It looks like definitely shifters, brake pads definitely, and we'll find out as we go along with the tubes. But man, this is great. It's easy peasy fix for it. So let's get them shift cables out. Oh, and of course grips. We'll get them some grips on here. With the shifters, almost all of them, the grub screw for locking the shifters on is going to be on kind of the inside of the shifter, whether it's a trigger shifter or whatever. Most of the time it's right there. Something else I'm going to check while I have these off is all of these, if you have silver or white cable housings, these are the housings that came on the bike, you know, in 1903, whatever it was. They're almost all fatigued and cracking. You can maybe make that out, not sure, but that's a destroyed housing. So we're going to replace those shift housings as well. Don't throw them away. Don't throw them away, because we're going to use these to measure the new ones. See that? Yeah. And that way we're not guessing when we're cutting the new ones to length. We can literally just match them up to the old ones. Oh, sorry, the AC just kicked on. We'll cycle that off. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, sorry about that AC cycling on. I know it's loud. So like I was saying, don't throw away the old cables. We're going to use the old shift cables that we took off to measure our new cables, and that way we're not guessing at lengths when we're trying to cut our new cables. After I cut the cables, we're going to go ahead and shift it into its native gear that it wants to be in, and that way we've taken all tension off of the system, and when we run our new cables, then we can easily set them up. So get rid of that little piece there. And again, we're going to replace this guy because I just don't trust it. So this is pretty much kind of where we strip it to. Again, I might have to change tubes. I thought I had some rub in this front wheel, but it looks like it may have just been the tire rubbing. But what we do for whenever we're having to do drivetrain swaps and stuff like that, that's where the microshift stuff comes in. We buy this stuff by the ton. Usually this is where, when we're getting grants for doing stuff like this, I wait until I can buy this stuff, you know, as cheap as I can, and then I literally buy it by the case. And these are just fantastic shifters. This is a derailleur, just in case I have any problems out of that one. I grabbed one of these out of stock. Probably won't need it, but what's great about these shifters is A, they work great, B, they're inexpensive, and they come with the cables already on them, which, you know, having to run new cables is just an extra cost. So the fact that these are super affordable and come with cables on them is fantastic. Since we're switching from grip shift to now these are going to be trigger shifters, what we have to do is pull the brakes off, and with grip shift, the shifters go outside of the brake. With trigger shifters, the shifters go inside the brake. So that's pretty much all we're going to do with that, is just reposition those. Meant to put it down there. I got spares. So we're just going to pop those two guys off. Thought I was kidding about them spares. And we're going to pop these guys on. So look at that. Some fresh, new shifters that'll work the treat. Now the reason I was able to use these micro shifters and just do a direct swap for the original. This bike has a Shimano rear derailleur, different types of, like if you have SRAM, it has a different cable pull, and some of these did come with like a SRAM X3 or X4. You wouldn't be able to just throw the micro shifts on here, unfortunately. If it had the SRAM, you'd have to go to some kind of SRAM equivalent shifter. And if I'm honest, it would still be cheaper for me to just go ahead and put these guys on and put the micro shift rear derailleur on it if it had a SRAM, rather than getting SRAM shifters to work with the existing SRAM derailleur. So, you know, if it did have SRAM, I would definitely just swap that out and just make it all kind of one thing. While I'm in the cockpit, I really like to finish a cockpit before moving on. It's just, you know, let's get everything tidied up before we move to the next step. And that's where these, again, we buy these things again by the ton, I think. Super affordable grips. These are made by Velos. They're the Velos handles. So, you know, whatever, they're grips. The thing I love about these is that they're really easy to cut to length. So they come with, you know, the mushroom on one side and the flange on the other side. What I'll usually do is just kind of set it up there, take a look, pick a groove in it with a razor blade, and once you get that cut started, you just follow it around that same groove. And when you use a sharp razor blade, this is so easy, but I'm not going to use a sharp razor blade. So there's our grip. You don't really have to match these up exactly, but if you really want to, you can just lay it right next to the other one. Set your razor blade in the groove where it matched the other one, and then we're just going to cut that same groove all the way around. You know, ODI makes this is kind of an ODI knockoff grip, but the one thing that the ODI has is, instead of these grooves being like a complete groove, the ODI, it spirals. It looks exactly like this, but this is actually a spiral groove all the way up the ODI. And so when you start on a groove, you'll get halfway around, and now you're off by one groove, and you're like, how did that, anyway? So just be aware, if you're doing that with an ODI, that might be something to be aware of. To put grips on, there's a million different ways. You can use air from the compressor to help put it on. Hairspray is a good one if, you know, you have bars that don't really, and grips that don't really want to stick or stay put. You can use hairspray. I usually just use, you know, alcohol or, you know, chain degreaser, and you just get the bar wet, get the grip wet, and then you got to move quick because it does dry fast. But as soon as that's dry, that grip won't go anywhere. Same again. Look at that. We're starting to look like a bicycle already. You can already see how this is going. And it's going good. It's going real good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Petros 3-ways. It's the only tool I can think of where you get to be wrong twice every time you pick it up before you finally, sometimes you can be wrong 3 times. It's crazy. But fortunately you have all the other tools in your hand, so eventually you'll find the right one. Get the brakes locked on here. Make sure you get your spacing the same. You know, let's not look too half-assed on it. Let's really make it look good. And when I'm putting these micro shifts on, I'll like kind of slam it up to the brake lever and then swing it down just a hair so that it's not touching. Hard to explain on camera, but sometimes there's a bolt on the back of the clamp for the brake lever, and it can get in the way of one of the thumb shifters depending on the brake and shifter combo. So it's a good idea to kind of swing it down just about 5 degrees just to make sure that we aren't gonna run into anything there. Get our cables so they're looking good, figure out which way we want to run them. I want to go inside of this one, and yeah, fantastic. I have some shift housing here that's left over from a Shimano kit that I did the other day, and man, anytime I can use parts from other leftovers, big fan, big fan. So what we're gonna do, because I like consistency, now that I have one cut from these two, I'm gonna use this to measure my second cut so that both of them are the same length and we are consistent. Those are of course brake. So let me grab another piece of shift here. Measure that guy up. Get him same. And I like to use an ice pick from Westside Ice and Fuel Co. They used to be on 2-notch right there, I think. And once you cut it, it just kind of cleans it up. Make sure that you have a nice, easy way for cable to run in there. One of the things that folks run into or frustrated or whatever with is, you know, you get your bike back from the shop and the first ride it shifts okay, the second ride it doesn't shift okay anymore. And part, you know, and then the shop says it's cable stretch. It's not really cable stretch. And that, I'm sure that somebody will have comments about it. What really it is these ends that I just put on, these ends here, they need to fully seat into the housing. And what I'll do with all of these is once I put them on, I'll lean against the bench right here and really push them into the bench. Really seat those in. Is that going to guarantee they're going to seat all the way? No. 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 But it's better. It's better than not doing it. Then I'll show you when we get a little further the next step of getting them seated all the way. Because the idea is if you take a few extra seconds when you're building the bike, you can really get them to seat about all the way every time. And that way, whoever gets it 2 days down the road, their fourth shift, it's not shifting anymore. Easy peasy. Look at that. We got us a complete cockpit here, guys. Complete cockpit. And then we'll just step 2 for seating the cables is, you know, the old in the Army, the howitzers, you know, those guys, artillery. Like, they used to have a rope that they would yank to fire the artillery, and they would like kind of face away from it when they were firing the battery or whatever. Like, you kind of do that with those. Just give it a good yank on that thing once you get it into the first stop. And then we're just going to continue on back. Hey, Spidey bro. Hey, Spidey bro. Get on back. I'm going to set that guy right back there for now. We're going to do the same thing with our front cable. Give him a yoink. And run it through. There's little cable guides right here on the bottom of the frame that you want to run these cables through. Getting them into those cable guides is really important. You just sit tight, sit. When I'm running this front derailleur cable, what I'll do on these, this is the D-pull or whatever that Shimano calls it, comes up over the top and back down. What I want to do on this is I want to pull nice and taut down, but then I'm also pulling the cable a little bit towards the back to really seat it into the cable clamp, to make sure that when I tighten that, it doesn't try to walk the cable forward. I don't know that that's really a problem, but it's just something that I feel like is easy to avoid. So, you know, why not? All right, last piece of housing, and we'll be kind of in business. Yeah, I've got all these scrap bags of cable ends, which is great. You wouldn't think you go through so many of these, but holy cow, go through a million of these things. All right. This guy, I always feed him in way up here out of the way of everything. Kind of get it in there. Send it down through rear derailleur, tuck it in down there, and then pull my excess as I'm kind of feeding that guy home. Look at that. Okay, would you look at it? Would you look at it? There is, on these clamps, if you look carefully, probably like 90% of these clamps, there's going to be like a little notch in the piece that actually clamps down on the cable. That'll kind of give you a heads up as to which direction to run the cable through the clamp bolt. Because I know that as soon as you remove the old one, you're going to be like, crap, I don't know which, was it on the inside, or was it over the top, was it around? So just take a look at that if you can't remember. Sometimes it's helpful. And the reason that's critical is running the cable on one side of this clamp bolt versus the other side of the clamp bolt can affect the cable pull ratio. And the cable pull ratio is how much cable does this lever pull every time you click at one. And that ratio of how much that cable is turned in this cam to how much this moves in is what's important. If you ran it wrong, it may shift fine in the first gear, it may even shift fine in the second, but by the third, it's going to start grinding. And by the fourth, it won't even shift. It'll just like kind of click and nothing happens. And that's because your ratio may be wrong here. There could be other causes, but if it shifted fine before and it's not shifting well after, that's what happened, is you ran the cable, you know, through the wrong side there. But no big deal, easy to fix, just something to be kind of aware of. So I've got our cables run now. Both shift cables are done. That was really quite easy. New shifters, new grips. You know, this is great stuff. Like I said, getting a bike in this good a shape that we can give away is just wonderful. So let's see if it shifts at all. Oh, I'm joking. I forgot about one step. Remember when I was doing all the cable, trying to get them seated here on the bench, then doing the pull here, the very last step, don't even turn the pedals, just go ahead and try to shift it And what that'll do is, if there was any cable, any end slop, that will actually pull it out. So what we're doing is we're actually using the cable itself to really draw those ends in, because it's now forcing it against steel. It can't go anywhere. And then we can check our cables and see if there was slop. This one's a little loose, but some of these like a little bit of loose to them, so we'll just see how it shifts. Would you look at that? Every gear, beautiful. And how about the front? I'm going to give a tiny bit of tension to the front, and we can do that just by turning this guy. These are the barrel adjusters right up here at the shifters. You can just, if you need a little bit more tension, you want to back that out, so turn this counterclockwise, about half a turn to one turn. And what we're doing is we're taking up that cable slack. And there we go. That's a much nicer shift. Still need to do brakes. So now that I knew that the shifters are feeling good, I feel confident that I've seated the cables correctly. This is when I finally go ahead and cut the excess off. And I like to keep them kind of tight and neat. I don't like 4 feet of cable coming out of there. We don't need it. It just has more opportunity to fray. If we leave a long cable, you're more likely to knock these little cable ends off. Cable starts to fray, makes a mess. It's gonna stab you in the leg every time you get on the bike. So cut it a little bit short, make it look nice, make them look consistent, and there we go. I just use needle nose to do those. I know that there are clamps and whatnot to do it, but I don't like to do it that way. So at this point, tires are still feeling really firm, so I'm really happy about that. For brake pads, what we're gonna do is go ahead and just fully remove these pads. And in fact, I can see just looking at this one with my eyeball that it is cracked and dry rotted. You don't ever have to save any of these little like washers and doodads that come on these, because the new pads will come with all those. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if you look right here, if it'll focus, I don't know if it'll focus. These, you see how it's cracked through the pad here. I don't know if it's gonna come on focus. And obviously you can see that pad was shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some fresh pads. Safety is, honestly, on these bikes, for me, safety is more important than having all the gears. If we can only get the 7 gears in the back working and use the middle one in the front, that's fantastic. But we've got to have brakes that work on every one of these bikes. So that's why we're gonna go ahead and throw some fancy Jaguar Sport Pro Comp, whatever, something pads on it. And these can be really fiddly the first few times you're trying to set up new pads. And the new ones, yeah, like I said, are the Jaguars. On the back of Jaguar pads, on these guys, it says rim right with an arrow or rim left with an arrow. That lets you know when it's saying rim right or rim left. Think about it when you're sitting in the seat. This is your right side of the bike. This is the left side. So this side that has all the gears and stuff, that's the right side. So you want to use the pad that says rim right with an arrow pointing towards the front on this side of the bike. I'd love to not be blocking the camera, but I gotta do it from this position or I will drop every single one of these washers. also don't want to show you my patented method of putting those on without dropping every single one of the washers. It's like ninja skills, if I'm honest. You have to grow 4 extra fingers to hold them in place. So once I get them on, one of the things you can do to roughly set the brakes is go ahead and pop the spring out, the little retainer spring for the brake arm, just so you're not wrestling with it. Let's not wrestle today. And that way you can kind of, I'll try to do this other hand so that you can see, you can kind of get the pad really kind of lined up, flush and level with the brake track. You're gonna have to fine tune it once you get these in, but this way we are, 85% home, and we haven't had to wrestle with them. Got that guy on. Let's throw the cable back in. And of course, now that we've put fresh pads on here that have a lot more space, the cable is too short, but we've got some tail here to work with. We're gonna try to make that work versus running new brake cables, because again, they feel so good, there's no point. I feel like we probably have enough there to make this work. You could flip the spacers around on the brakes to, essentially bring them in a little bit, but man, I don't want to get into that mess again. So with this pad, we can see this one's now rubbing a hair on the wheel. You want to try to get those guys at least start, since I dropped both, I'll go ahead and pick up the other one. All right, so I got 2 of them now. You want to start with the pad pretty much like in line with the wheel with no toe angle or anything on the pad, just so that it's a good starting point. If they're squealing, you can adjust the pad or the toe angle of the pad and adjust that squealing a little bit. But let's at least get them on square first. Make them look okay. I can see that I'm missing my screw adjuster for that brake, so it's going to drag a little bit. We're going to go ahead and throw the front pads on before we start trying to dig out a screw. And this is just literally a repeat of the rear. Left pad goes on the left side. Again, if you think about when you're sitting in the saddle, which side is the left is your not right. It's the other side that's not the right side. It's the left. If I make it through all 4 without dropping a washer, I feel like I'm gonna earn myself a cup of coffee or something. I don't know. Done good, boys. We done real good. We did it. Yeah, so if I leave the spring on when I'm doing this initial adjustment, it's just really frustrating trying to fight the spring, get the pad equal to the brake track, keep it from falling down, keep the thing from pulling back up. So again, the initial segment, just get that spring out of the way. That way, you don't have to wrestle with it all. I don't have to wrestle with it all. Is it perfect? No. But once we get both of them set close enough, then we get the cable pulled, get equal spring tension on both sides, then we can really tell what fine tuning we have to do. but at least this gets us 90%, 85, whatever I said before is the amount. And we'll need to do the same thing here. We'll pull out a little bit of this cable. Give us a little bit of grab there. There we go. This one looks pretty dang good right out of the gate. How about this side? This side we're rubbing on the tire right here. It happens. It happens. Yeah, you want an equal gap above the brake pad and the bottom of the tire. So that's kind of what I'm looking at when I'm staring down in there. Is my gap consistent? And trying to see where we are. I thought we were a little bit out of true. I swear. I think what we're looking at is these two screws on the bottom of your on the bottom of the brake arms. You can kind of see this one right here if you zoom way in on the video. And I'm missing the one on that side, so I'll have to get to that. But what I'm noticing right away is when I'm staring at it with my eyeballs straight on and I'm pulling this brake lever, I'm noticing I'm getting a lot more movement out of this arm than I am out of this arm, which means this arm is pushing up against the wheel and it's not pulling back much. I'm going to back up this screw just a little bit to take some of the cable tension off of that side. And I'm also still rubbing on the tire just a hair here. Just a hair here. Getting better. Getting better. Yeah, whenever you make an adjustment on one of these lower doodads, go ahead and squeeze the brake lever a couple of times, and that kind of resets everybody. It gets the springs kind of settled back in where they're supposed to be. Got a little touch on the heel on this one, so I'm not quite centered here. Come on, no touching on the heel. And generally, if you make an adjustment on one side, make an adjustment on the other side in the equal and opposite direction. So got a touch of rub. I think it's on this guy right here. Yeah, we're going to call that good enough for government work. And got the same, oh yeah, the rubbing on the back. Hold on one second, I'm going to grab that screw and we're going to throw that in. Alright, yeah, in one of the bins we had over there, I found this Tetra. We save a lot of these things, literally anything. But that's the screw I need, is that guy right there. And we'll see if we can make that work. And these all should be, some of them have a different thread pitch, but almost all of them are like, I don't know what that is, M2, M3, probably like 0.25 or something. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers. But threads feel good, so we'll send that guy in there. I can already see both arms move as I was screwing it in. So we were closer, getting a little bit more movement out of that left side. So yeah, without that screw, there's nothing to put tension on those springs. So the brake arm can't rebound. Like that. No more rubbing. So for really, I mean, all intents and purposes, this bike is ready to go now. I'll probably throw a kickstand on it, but otherwise, you know, this will be a fantastic bike for somebody who needs to get to work. And it took, what, 2 grips, 2 shifters, 2 sets of brake pads, and this will be sitting in our warehouse until it finds a home. So when I get back there and I go to give it to somebody, if it has flat tires at that point, we'll throw tubes in it. Otherwise, we'll send it as it is, because I mean, it'll be probably a day or 2 before somebody comes in, and this is the right size bike for them, which is great. The bike can sit there, and again, if I check it and it has flat tires at that point, then tubes will go in. So, you know, all told, we've got, let's see, at this point, you know, right at $57 in parts and probably about $40 in labor. So, you know, right around $100 is what we've got into a bike like this, that can go out and somebody in the community can use. And that's where we can make a big impact with, instead of us buying bikes, which I'd love to be able to, if somebody wants to give us $1 million, we'll buy bikes with it. But unfortunately, bikes are expensive. If we can get bikes like these that need stuff like shifters and cables and grips and maybe inner tubes, you know, $100, and we can get a bike built up like this and get it to somebody who can use it. And so thank you so much. Just wanted to kind of show you what goes into one of our giveaway bikes so that you can kind of see the process, see what, you know, what we're doing with these bikes once they're donated. And that way, you know, somebody can get this bike, get it to work, super cheap to maintain going forward, and it should be a great commuter here in town. Thank you, guys.